That's done, Rika. So it should be very shortly. Go ahead.
All right, okay. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to our community board meeting on the 18th of August in these very new circumstances and set up for us as a board. This is the first time we're meeting like this, virtually all on Teams. So welcome, everybody. Before we get into our public forum, just like to remind our guests that you do have 5 minutes to speak. And if I can ask first, the first speaker would be Peter Grant. Peter, if you can just remember to unmute your computer before you start speaking.
Yeah. You can hear me?
Yeah, I can. Good morning.
Good morning. Go.
Yes, please.
Yeah, thanks. I'll try and get through within the 5 minutes. I've written everything down to speed it up. I'm here to not only support rugby, but I'm here to support the community and sports clubs that have rates on council reserves, and that's what I want to talk about. I'm involved in all those clubs. Milky Bay Yachting Club, I sailed for them in 1980 and hold a Waikato title. Whittingham Art Group, our family was instrumental in shifting that shed. They have 3 life memberships. Whittingham Gun Club, I was secretary treasurer of there for many years. And of course, you know my 40 years of involvement with tennis and rugby. We're a bit worried about the rates issue coming up again, which I don't think should ever have happened. But anyway, my thing on there should be no general rates payable. The council own and administrate it and use the reserve land. Quote, there's a quote, Mercury Bay Rugby and Sports Club have exclusive use of the area where their club rings are located, not the fields. Quote, the leasee acknowledges that this lease does not provide any lease over the playing field, unquote. Quote, the leasee has first right of booking using the TCD booking system from 1st of February, the week prior to Labour weekend, unquote. Rugby has no control over the fields. It's not a rating issue as far as general rates should never be struck on land reserves, and the rugby club does not have control of them. Charges that have been made, that may be made. In some of the leases, there may be inclusion that in that lease they might be charges they might have to pay up for water and sewage charges, but it's only what's been included in the lease, and if it hasn't, then they're up. None of those groups have to pay any rates at all, only their lease agreement. And when it comes to that sewage and water, some clubs have one kitchen and some toilets should only be charged.
All right. Good. Okay, thanks. Bye.
Carry
Sorry,
on.
Peter. Murray, if you can just, please carry on, Peter. Murray, if you can just mute your microphone, please.
I am. I was just getting instructions. I'm just joining. Sorry about that.
Thank you.
Morning, Paul.
Carry on.
Sorry, Peter. Yeah, please carry on.
Yeah, 1 unit. Some clubs have one kitchen and some toilets and should only be charged as 1 unit, similar to a residential property. It should not be equate to pan charge, regardless of whether these groups have 2, 4, 6 pans. There is no more or less usage. Do not compare with a commercial property such as a motel, which has a number of rentable units on one site. Most residential properties have 2 toilets, which include an ensuite. Some have a third in a utility or garage. And it comes, have no second kitchen, which can be rented. They pay for 1 unit of water and sewage only. I'm a bit confused here. I've got a bit hard under the light. Members of these clubs are already paying for these charges in residential rates. And when they are at their club rooms, there's no more pressure on the services. Whittingham Sports Park, it has cost ratepayers millions of dollars to develop the park and to provide the facilities, and at a cost to maintain them, borne by council. Sports clubs such as netball, rugby league, cricket, football, etc., who do not have to pay these charges. why should these clubs spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to develop and maintain their facilities be penalised? It's not fair. And that's not to say that I'm running down this Whittier Sports Club park. I think no one should pay any charges, and I'm quite happy for it to be there, but I don't think other sports clubs should be penalised as well. Community, all sports and community clubs are an important part of our society for health and recreation and support.
Just told you to turn your camera off.
Of those,
I've turned it off.
in those clubs that we've been involved with, the Mercury Bay Yachting Club,
Up over here.
Hold of the Americas Club, Whittier Art Group,
But you might have to turn it.
painters well known throughout New Zealand, Whittier Gun Club, hold national titles and New Zealand representatives, Rugby Club,
Make it up a bit.
provincial and super rugby players, and a New Zealand Colt, Squash Club, born and learnt to play squash here. Ross Norman went on to become a world champion. So these sports facilities are very important to our small community. There is some more that I'd like to have brought up, but because of the shortage, not the shortage of time, but the difficulty of the meeting, I've got this here, and at some stage I'll drop it down to the office when Heather, so that she can email it to each member or have it recorded in the minutes at a later date. Thanks very much for your time, Ricky. Any questions from anybody there?
Thanks,
Please?
Peter. Thank you, Peter. Board members, did anyone have any questions of Peter? You could just use the raise your hand button if you did. No, all right. Thanks, Peter. I appreciate that. Thank you for bearing with us through the change in circumstances.
Yeah. Okay.
All right.
I'll leave the meeting now. Is that okay?
Sorry?
I will leave the meeting now. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine.
Okay.
Thank you, Peter. All right, and next on my list, so I'll just quickly use this time to welcome new guests to the meeting and just ask if you have your microphone on, could you please mute yourself, and could you also please just turn off your cameras at this stage until you're invited to speak. I'm told that that is best practice and that will help us have a strong connectivity for this meeting. Thank you. Now, Jen, can you just let me know, is Alan Gaskin in the meeting at this stage? Okay, next person then I'd like to invite, I just saw her, Sue Edens. So if you could just remember to turn your camera on and your microphone, please.
Sorry, turn them off or turn them back on.
On, sorry, thank you, there you are. Good morning.
Good morning, good morning. I'd like to speak about the Jack Mills Reserve at Opeta Bay. I'm against the council disposing of this. My understanding is it's about 800 square metres and under the new district plan rules you need 1,200 for an on-site wastewater, so it's not going to work from that perspective. It's a triangular shape, and it means that part of the land, the pointed part, and it's quite a steep triangle, is not actually very suitable for somebody to use as a residential section, assuming it's would be considered for residential. At the moment, it actually, with where it's sitting, with dockland and the shape of the sand dunes, etc., it actually connects the road to the beach. And I think that's actually quite an important point there, that if you put well, assuming a person would put a fence along their boundary, it disconnects that area of the of having solid area for parking, etc., which people now use it for, and then getting onto the beach. The helicopters that service the lighthouse have often used that area because of the added area with the dock reserve. It makes more area for their trucks and their helicopters and their equipment, and it takes pressure off the more Crescent Reserve down the other end, which you guys are well aware of. It has a water tank storage on there by the fire brigade, which is used for the central part of the bay. Obviously, if it was sold, that would have to be picked up, and I'm not quite sure where it would be put on council land to be still in the centre of the bay. It has established pohutukawa trees on and around it, and I'm quite sure you people understand how hard it is to get pūtakawa trees to grow near the beach when you've got sometimes residents who don't particularly want them there. And I think the bigger part, in my perspective, is this is the other end of my father's subdivision. Council had a go at trying to get to do this very same thing with the corner of Skippers Road and Blackjack Road, and it ties into the Opeta Sands subdivision that I've done at the other end. Community Board was asked to support Opeta Sands during the planning time, which is no doubt before most of you are on the current board, but there wasn't an over lot of support from Community Board. I do understand that for its various reasons, but once, well, say that you decide to sell this particular piece of land at the eastern end or the southern end of Dad's subdivision, are you then going to turn around and start chopping up the reserve in Opeta Sands and selling it? Because that area is actually 3 times bigger than what was required as a reserve under the Resource Management Act. So from that perspective, the protection of the Opeta Sands subdivision is a high issue to me. It's very important to me that the reserves do stay in Opeta. You know, if you really want to sell a reserve, maybe go up the back where people aren't utilising the land. There's one in, I think, Stewart Place, but is it suitable for living on? I don't know, for residential. And yeah, so I hope that the items that I've brought up will be considered in your decisions. And it is, when you drive into the area, I think it helps open up Opeta. We don't need any more pressure on the Moore Crescent Reserve down the other end, and this is one area where they do all sorts of things on. There's kids play there, there's and all the bits that I've talked about. So thank you for your time.
All right, thanks, Sue. Board, does anyone have any questions? No. All right, thank you.
Okay.
Thanks, Sue.
Is there anyone else speaking on the Jack Mills Reserve?
We had one other person register, but I don't think that, and Jennifer will correct me, I can't see their name here. So they may pop in a little bit later. A little bit, yeah.
I would say because of the COVID and changing it, there are 4 or 5 people that may have turned up at your meeting that may not join into this particular way of doing it. Thank you.
We have received a number of emails and they have been circulated with the board.
Good, thank you. Bye.
Thanks, Sue. Okay, right. Next, I would like to invite Linda Chumley-Smith. Linda, if you could just remember to put your microphone on and your camera.
I'm here.
Good morning.
Good morning, everyone. A new experience.
Yes.
I'd just like to take the opportunity to again address the issue of tsunami sirens in Whitianga. I sent out to everybody the information from the survey that was done by Coromandel CFM regarding the sirens in Whitianga, and overwhelmingly 65.5% of the area or the community want sirens. So once again, we're at a situation where there has been petitions, there's been national TV coverage, there has been resolutions passed by the communities. There have been numerous ways of connecting with the community to find out what they want, and we've heard nothing from council other than that they're moving forward. So given that, we have been talking to some of the chairpersons in the areas, as has Gary Towler, and they are making their own decisions on which direction they're going, which is fine. We provided them with ample information to take to their communities. Although in saying that, I'm not sure that any of them have taken it to their communities, but that was the vehicle that we were making the information available to initially so that they could get the information out to the communities. I think in saying that, the Whitianga community especially, and Pawanui Tairua and Whairakaho is also very interested, looking at moving forward with purchasing sirens. And that brings us to the decision that needs to be made and the clarity that we would like from our community board. We know where our own 2 Mercury Bay Community Board councillors stand in our own ward. They've made it very clear that they're against sirens, the tsunami sirens, but the community purchasing sirens, we need the support of our community board. You are here to represent the community, and I think that it's time now that you make your voice heard on what your stance is. We'd like a declaration from the community board on where you stand with using sirens and purchasing sirens, because we're going to not only have to purchase the sirens as a community, we're also going to have to look at the consent process with council, who turns it on, and a lot of different things that already these questions have been brought up in a lot of different areas. I would say that the mandate that was passed at the Whitianga Community Town Hall meeting on June the 12th, a mandate was passed by all those that were present, and there were a lot of community chairs of residents and ratepayers at that meeting. And those people passed a mandate which we have been implementing, and a part of which is asking under the Official Information Act for information from the council in regard to the decision that was made to discontinue sirens. That evidence has been forthcoming in small amounts. The process continues, and I'm hopeful that the community board has received this information. Do you know, Rika, if Gary Towler has provided you with all the information that he's been providing us on behalf of the community under the Official Information Act? Because I would imagine that you've got that information, but if not, I will forward it to the community board. But maybe Gary has already given it to you. So in saying that, that is all that I have to say, other than that our communities are moving forward doing due diligence with various companies in purchasing sirens, and those communities that are wanting to do that will move forward with that process. So if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them. Otherwise, if people would like to tell me where they stand in relationship to sirens in our community as a community board member, I'd be happy to hear that.
All right. Okay. Thanks, Linda. Did the board have any questions of Linda? So if you did have any questions, board members, I just want to remind you, I've just been sent a very helpful note here from Jennifer. There is a raise your hand button at the top. You can do that if you did want to ask questions or comment on anything at any time. Thanks, Linda, for your time for coming in. There is an order paper item on tsunami sirens later in the meeting. Of course, you're welcome to stay and listen in on that if you would like to.
Thank you so much, Rika.
All right, thank you. So next speaker that I have listed is Alison Henry. And Alison, if I can just remind you to turn your microphone on and your camera on.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Good morning, welcome.
Thank you, Rika. Good morning, everybody. I'm here to address item number 3, which is the report on the request for council land for pensioner and assisted living housing. And I'm here to bring our response from the Mercury Bay Community Fund to that staff report. Our trust has presented to the board a number of times for some 5 or more years, and there is no question that there's a demonstrated need for pensioner housing in this area. And this is certainly not questioned, and it is reflected in TCDC's own positive ageing strategy. We provide a lot of facilities for young people and for sports, but we'd be hard pressed to find what we provide for our ageing population. Providing for the needs of the aged is a local government responsibility. Central government may well assist, but that would only be if the local board or council supports what is proposed. A verbal suggestion that we had to approach the main developer in town has already been done. That developer says they are already providing lower cost housing, but it's not quite the lower cost that we require. We reiterate, we are only wanting a change of classification, which would then allow for sensible discussion as to whether or not building more pensioner units is feasible. This process could, and it actually should have been done during the recent reserves management review, but instead it does appear that that process was a status quo rollover for all the reserves. This report does not provide a review of the bowling club site or any other identified sites, and it is both unfortunate and disappointing in that it does not give you as a board any guidance as how you could or should help. It looks at all the bureaucratic blocks and processes, but does not look at what could be possible. It appears to be a cut and paste exercise actually from other documents, including casting back to the Robinson Road and White Street reserves, both of which we have clearly stated are not suitable for our purposes, but still seem to be there in the preferences of staff. And it's interesting to note that these are also recreational reserves, and we would need both to enable enough units to be built. In seeking suitable land, I am not aware of finding any suitable land that was classified as local purpose. In addressing the report specifically, I go to point number 2, discussion. The first part of that discussion was the Reserves Act 1977. And we say, yes, all the land is classified as recreational reserve, which is for the benefit and enjoyment of the public. However, our preferred sites are the bowling club land, which is not used and is leased by a specific and very small group in our community. The other site is the School Road Reserve, which is noted by staff as being underutilised and of little aesthetic value. Talks about costs of reclassification at $2,000 or thereabouts, which we have already said would be at our cost. We are not looking for revocation. The Reserves Act has clearly prescribed processes for a change of classification. Yes, public notification and consultation would be necessary, and this is exactly what we want to happen. We want to inform our community of what we want to do and why, and to gauge their support for this proposal. This would also be a useful exercise for the board to inform the board. Under consideration, it notes that there are limited land options, and also we are a charitable trust, and discussion about generation of income of revenue is irrelevant. In summary, we are looking to you as our community representatives to work with us to find solutions in a manner similar to what happened at the Kotari Reserve in Hahei, which provided reserve land to accommodate St. John's. We cannot afford to purchase land, and instead we have identified reserve land to lease that is underutilised, but where the size and situation are totally suitable to our needs. We are asking for reclassification of both or one of these reserves to local purpose, with the specific purpose of allowing for pensioner housing. It is unfortunate that that discussion did not happen at the time of the Reserves Management Review. Reclassification to local purpose does not alter the existing use, but it does open possibilities for the future use, and we expect to meet costs. We were very disappointed that this report provides you with no new information and does not provide you with guidance on how we may move forward in a positive manner.
Alison, if you could just start wrapping up, please.
I've wrapped.
Just looking at you've wrapped.
I'll send a copy of this to Donna for distribution. And thank you for your time and good luck with your meeting format. Thank you, Rika.
Thank you, Alison. Thank you. And just before you go, does any board members have any questions of Alison? No, no hands being raised. All right, fantastic, Alison. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll leave the meeting.
Okay. And so I think our next public forum speaker would be Chris Costello. Chris, if you could just turn your microphone and your camera on, please.
Well, Peter's sort of. You're there?
I'm here. Yeah, we're
Yep.
all here.
All
Everyone else
good.
is very
I was just following on from Peter's discussion earlier, just as a rugby club with the rates. I'm not too sure how much Heather sort of did mention how much over the phone and all that, but we're not too much sure how much we are going to get charged and stuff. But just the same thing. We're here for the community. I know lots of other places around New Zealand, like up in Manukau, their rugby club and stuff up there. They're on council-owned land. That's similar to us. They own the building, but not the land. But their council doesn't charge them a thing. All they ask is, they're happy for them to be there as long as they just keep their insurance up and the building maintained, and you're doing a great job for the community. So they're happy to go with that. But same thing with us. It doesn't matter. All our members are ratepayers that pay to have a poo or whatever somewhere. It doesn't matter if they do in a public toilet at the sports park or at home. They're already paying for it anyway. And with the water, fair enough. We should get probably charged some water, but and the solid waste, we do all our own recycling. We take all our own rubbish plus other rubbish that gets put on the park from the community. We sort all that out. I don't think we should be paid charged any of that as well. But that's basically it. I mean, Peter's written out a thing there, so he'll send it in for everyone to look at. And I'm just sort of following up on that a little bit, but I think it's pretty tough to today's world. It's sort of, for us, it's unfair when a lot of other clubs don't get charged anything out there to have their poo out at the sports park or somewhere else, but we get charged when we've sort of got a lot of other costs to sort of contend with, But that's all. Thanks.
All right. Thanks, Chris. All right. Did anyone have any questions? No. Okay. Thanks, Chris. Is there anybody on the line that is here for public forum that may have just joined a bit later and we haven't got your details? If you could just unmute yourself and let us know that you're there. No? Okay. So that is our public forum then. If I could just get a mover and a seconder for our public forum.
Yeah, I'm happy to move, Rika. Jeremy.
Thanks, Jeremy. Seconded by Bill McLean. Thank you, Bill. I see you put your hand up there. And then all those in favour?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, fantastic.
Aye.
I'm going to try something here. I'm going to ask that just the board members put their cameras on. Jen, did you get that to work? And then that way we can just raise our hands if with our microphones turned off. Sorry guys, if you just bear with us, this is the first time we've had to do this. So microphones off, but if you have your cameras on, that might help with being able to physically show your hand if you want to speak. All right, okay, thank you. Sorry, I just need to go through here. So we've got, sorry, I missed at the start. We've got no apologies. Are there any items that aren't on the agenda? No.
No, there are not.
No, okay, thanks, Jen. Any conflicts of interest?
No.
No, okay. Bill McLean, if you could just put your hand down, please. You just click on the little yellow hand again. Right, and so that takes us to item 1.6, which is our minutes for confirmation, and that is on page 3. Any comments from anyone? No comments? All right, can I just get a mover and a seconder for the minutes? Moved Tony, seconded by Jeremy. Thank you. All those in favour, please say aye.
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 Opposed? None. Thank you. Right, sorry, I'm moving much faster than I am. All right, so next item is 2.1, the Mercury Bay Community Board Correspondence Report. And that's on page 14. I've had a look through. Any comments? Do you wanna... Was there more correspondence that came in, Heather?
Yes, Rika and the board, good morning. Just to draw your attention, I've sent it out to all of you. There was the emails in relation to Jack Mills Reserve. There was 3 emails, one from Rachel and John Boyd, one from Rebecca Charlton, and one from Chris Greaves. There was also another letter, same subject, from Catherine Somerville, who was acting on behalf of property owners for 3 properties at Opeta. So please let me know if you haven't received those, and I'll make sure that you get them.
All right, thank you. Can I get a mover and a seconder for the correspondence report, please?
I'll move it.
Thanks, Deli. Seconded by Tony. Is that you blinking? Fantastic, thank you. Right, all those in favour?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Carried. Thank you. So our next item is on page 27. It's item 2.2, which is the Mercury Bay Museum Management Agreement and request for funding.
Madam Chair, should I speak a little bit to that?
Yes, please, if you could, Heather.
Okay, so as you'll have seen on the report, this has come about. It's been a long sort of process where we've been working with the museum. They previously had their funding agreement, which was the $25,000 a year. But there was always a bit of conversation around whether or not there was a requirement for a lease. So all parties have agreed that this is the way forward, and it will encapsulate some of a lease process, but also the funding agreement. So I do need to draw your attention to page 33. That if you agree to the museum agreement, to the draft agreement, that also agrees to making an annual grant that this year for the next 3 years would be 27,000 plus GST for the group for the next 3-year period. And in respect to the request for covering the rates from the discretionary fund, I just wanted to be clear that that's quite separate from the report that we have later in the day on the rating situation with community groups. This is for last year. And it was an unexpected bill that they weren't anticipating, which arrived just as we were in the middle of agreeing this agreement. So they will pay their rates going forward as part of this agreement, but just hadn't anticipated last year. So that's me, unless you have any questions.
No, it seems pretty clear to me. Murray?
Yeah, I've got a couple of questions, Heather.
Sure.
Are you surprised? The 27K, is everyone aware that as I read it, this is 27K plus we're responsible for all the maintenance? So this could be 27 plus it could be another 50, 60, 100K a year. Because we've got, that's the way I read it, am I correct?
Well, to be the 27,000 is the same as the 25,000 funding agreement we've given them for the last however many years, plus the extra 2 to cover the extra costs. So that's for the management, that's specifically for them to open the museum and provide a museum to the public. It's not the costs. Yes, so you're right. Potentially the building costs, which we already as building owners should be covering.
So I just want to make sure everyone's clear, because in the original agreement with the Lions, it has the word may, and we've now accepted we're going to take that. So I want to be everyone clear there. And the second question I've got is under clause 5A, it talks about the 27,000 for a 3-year period. And then under clause 5J, it says the trust shall have a right of renewal for a further 3 years, subject to satisfactory performance. I just find those two, I can't see anywhere where there's a term of 3 years that clause J is referring to, and I just wondered there.
Okay, you're right, Murray, that's a good point. And I think that it's probably just relating to the agreement, not the 27,000, but I think perhaps you're right, we should be more clear on.
We should be clear on that.
On J, and I'm happy to change the wording of that so that it says that it's for the agreement has a right of renewal for 3 years, and that the funding
I would like to see that the agreement is for 3 years with a right of renewal, but a review by all parties at the end of that 3 years, because I've been involved with too many trusts and agreements like this where unless there's a formal note to agree, they carry on, and then things don't get reviewed. So at that time, it's a time to look at the composition of the museum people. Is everyone doing their job? So I'd like to see that it's along with that renewal is a review.
Okay, so it's not automatic renewal, it's the right of renewal for 3 years, subject to
and then
review.
It's reviewed and then another, yeah. I just want to, so it's not just rolled over and forgotten.
Would it be appropriate to amend the resolution for that purpose? Jennifer may be able to advise on that. And Dali also has her hand up.
Yeah, I was just going to say Dali's got a question too.
I just want to say that I agree totally with Murray in that let's see how it goes and have a really robust conversation and review process after 3 years.
After 3 years, yeah.
Yeah.
So if we amend clause 2, that with the management agreement and it's got subject to a 3-year term with a review at the end of 3 years with a right of renewal, that's all we need to do.
Jennifer, are you happy to type that up for us so we can see what it looks like?
If you can give me some words, I'm happy to type them up. So just support me through this if you don't mind.
We accept the draft clause 2,
so
the draft management agreement for the Mercury Bay Trust Board, and that clause 5J be amended.
So
hang on, I'm just bringing it up.
You should see it on your screen, Murray.
To say that the agreement, yeah, I've just got it, I'm just reading it in front of me.
Okay.
The trust shall have, or this agreement shall be for 3 years with a right of renewal for a further 3 years, subject to review by all parties. And then that it's got to have approval from council. Just in words, something like that. Perhaps of everyone's agreement, we can just tidy that up at the end of the meeting.
Yeah.
Right.
But yeah, a thorough review by both parties, I think, is key.
We want a review by both parties at the end of 3 years. It's still got the right to renew. But,
Review, Jen.
And that this agreement is for a 3-year term, because it says there's a right of renewal for a further 3 years, but it doesn't say anywhere I've been through that say that this agreement is for a 3-year term. So I'm just a little bit at loss.
Okay, no, that's good spotting, Murray.
Yes, thank you, Murray.
Okay.
We'll work on that. Heather, I'm also happy if you wanted to instant message me. I am happy to plug it in there. You're a bit more comfortable with this report.
Okay,
So
that's fine. We'll do
that.
that after. Okay.
Thank you.
So
that brings us to point 3 of the resolution. Is that what you were going to say, Heather?
I was going to say was if everyone is happy with that with number 2 resolution, then yeah, we go on to resolution 3.
Okay. Right, and yeah, so we'll capture that wording at the end of this, but yeah, point 3, which is approve the amount of $1,595.58, and that's to cover the rates recovery from last year. Is that right?
That's right.
Yeah. Everybody comfortable with that?
Yep, I'm happy with that.
Okay. All right, so I'll put the resolutions as they are with those changes that need to be made. Sorry, Jen, did we get a mover and a seconder for this report?
I'm happy to move
No,
it
we
with
have
the
not.
amendments.
Okay. Moved by Murray,
I'll
seconded by
second.
Deli. Thank you. All those in favour, please say aye.
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 Opposed?
Aye.
None. Fantastic. Carried. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, board.
Thanks, Heather. And that takes us on to item 3.1 on page 39, which is our Parks Works program. Now, I know Derek is busy getting signage and things up and organised. So is Sue going to talk to this one?
Good morning.
Derek's?
Yeah, I've
Derek's?
managed
Yeah.
to dispense of my responsibilities for the next 10 or 15, 20 minutes or so. So I'm at the board's disposal. Sue is here as well, so she can help me out regarding the list if there are any questions regarding that, the minor parks projects budget. So basically the summary is that we've identified that we've got $184,000 in our renewals, and that goes to replace park benches, etc. And there's also a secondary budget there, which is $151,000, which the board requested be included as part of the LTP process. And we've generated a general list from action points that have never been able to be completed previously, and that's where Sue's worked that list up. She's got $147,000 there with a contingency of about 4.5. So if there's any questions on those specific ones, Sue's here to answer those ones. Okay.
Thank you. I've got a couple of questions, and that is about putting power supply into reserve areas, barbecue areas, and things like that. Opeta, Stuart Stream one is the one that sort of jumps out. Why would we need to do that?
So currently there is a barbecue there.
Yeah.
So it's run by gas. And we thought that we could change that over to electric. And there was a bit of a safety issue at that toilet. There's not much lighting there. I know that Opeta in Katuna and Otama have got a no lights policy, but in the order of having some safety out there, I think that we should have a light near the toilet there.
Okay, so that's what the power's for, right?
So it's a bit of a double banger there. So there is some frustrations with customers when they when the barbecue obviously empties of gas. So that's the mantra behind having electric as well.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Sue and Derek. The other question I had is we're talking about identifying a budget for the Maiwai Park playground. Did we ever think or have a conversation about that playground perhaps even moving towards the sports park or into the sports park?
That's a good point. The reason why that one's up there is it is due for renewal underneath the renewals program. So it's a great time to have that conversation. Absolutely. Would you like us to start some consultation around that?
For me, just as a parent that takes children to the sports park to play sports, having that play park for the younger ones closer and in the same vicinity makes a lot of sense. I don't know what the board think. If anyone else got some thoughts around that? Jeremy?
Yeah, I'm very much in support of looking at relocating it to the sports park. It makes perfect sense to have it in an area where there's a lot of activity. Best utilise it for sure, especially if we're due for an upgrade.
Delhi?
Makes sense.
Yeah, it just makes a lot of sense, and I think it's more visible too from a safety point of view. So it's going to have greater utilisation. Be in cahoots with the sports activity, particularly parents who've got younger children that are supporting older children playing sports. I think, yeah, would be really great. Like to see some consultation.
Yeah, absolutely. Murray?
I just want to question a couple of things. Power supply to Opeta, $3,000. Is that a new supply or is there existing supply there and we don't have to, so we're just connecting to existing?
So it's already established. I've put a switchboard in. We're just actually
okay, that answers the question.
Yeah, that's why it's so cheap.
Sorry?
That's why it's so cheap.
Yep, I can understand that. And the sports park equipment shed, 25,000.
Yes.
Are we so short a room there and underneath that we've got to spend that now?
So that there is moving the shed from Arlington House out to what we've already established. There's a pad established before budgets were pulled before COVID. So we're halfway through that project. That $25,000 is a pure guess. It won't be that much. To move that shed out there, we need it because we don't have enough space for the codes. I could take the board out there. The place is jam-packed with gear. We need the space.
So you're telling me, Sue, the pads are down?
Yeah, the pad is already down.
You're saying you're just taking the sheds at the back of Arlington House out and putting them on those pads?
Yes, I think we need to check out.
Has a comparative cost be done between new sheds and shifting those old ones?
Andrew Scobie is actually driving that project, so I'd have to talk to him. But
I would like to see a comparison because you're just about building new ones, and those ones are pretty old and cruddy at the back. I'd like to see a comparison.
Yes, I think that figure's just been plucked out the sky.
Okay, I don't like figures that have been plucked.
No, Stan, we'll get comparative pricing. We'll make sure that's done, Murray. Thank you.
Okay. Well, I just like be noted that I don't like figures that are plucked like that, and I have some reticence on that approving that figure, but I'll let it go.
Thank you, Murray.
Thank you. Good comment.
Okay, Delhi, do you have your hand up again, or is it still up?
I think I've just had my hand up for fun, actually. Sorry, I'll put it down.
Okay, Jeremy.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask around the Meadow Cook driveway walkway. Do you have any detail around that?
So that figure has come, that request has come from the public. So we've had residents within the Meadow Drive area driving that for the last 4 years. There's no connections from some of the areas within our community through to town, and the existing walkway at the moment is wet, and people are trying to use it. So it's been an ongoing one, that one. So it's finally made it to the list. So
what you're saying, Sue, is that there's currently there's the land there, it's grassed, and you're forming a walkway, correct?
Yes, sorry, it's a concrete path. It's probably 1.2 wide, and it goes the full length of the walkway. So it's quite a long walkway.
Yep. Okay. Cool. And just what about safety fencing, ferry landing, path ferry landing? What they refer to?
What was that one? Sorry.
Safety fencing, ferry landing, and path ferry landing.
Oh, I'm drawing a blank on that one.
Okay, safety fencing will be up at the cemetery. So there's a number of points, and we've already got some safety fencing in place there, but there's a number of points where people gather relatively close to the edging. And, yeah, and the path is something that Paula has probably requested of your budget within ferry landing. Do you want me to get specifics? I can call her into the office at the moment. Or would you like us to come back to you?
No, that's fine. Yeah, just come back to us, Derek. It's fine.
Thank you.
Okay. Murray, have you got your hand up?
I have indeed. Just one other question. Following on from what was just said about that walkway, why is it in the Parks and Reserves budget and not in the footpath budget?
It will most likely be in the Parks and Reserves budget because it will go across reserve land as opposed to road reserve.
Well, I would suggest the pathway right down the front of Buffalo Beach goes down Parks and Reserves, and that was done, I believe, and discussed at Community Board, and this hasn't, to my knowledge, been discussed at Community Board at all. And I just wondered why it's coming in this way.
Sorry,
yeah, maybe it's been categorised.
It seems a bit of de facto way to come in, dodging process.
So you're uncomfortable with this particular spend? Is it?
I know for me personally, I've had a couple of people, and this was going back a couple of years when Sue says it's been around for a while. I think what happens in that area when it gets quite wet and boggy and it's not really usable in terms of it just gets a bit boggy. And I know I have had in the past a few residents from down that way that use that shortcut to get towards town. They find that unusable in sort of wintry months. Does that come from Sue?
Yes.
I don't doubt that, but the question is that normally the Community Board decides the priorities for footpaths, streetlights and all those things, and a few residents and staff making a thing to spend the money on that, I just find not following the normal process. That's all. I just make that comment.
Yeah, well, I've presumed that anything that comes through me, I can put forward as a request, and the board decide from there.
Yeah.
So that's how I see the process.
What I'm saying once again, in this form, if we approve the whole thing, we've approved it.
That's why we're here, I guess, to iron all these things out.
Yep.
Rico.
Yes, sorry, Jeremy.
I was just going to say, just based on what Murray's saying, I wonder if we should consider removing it for now and looking at putting it back into putting it through the process so that we can bring it back to Community Board for discussion. I don't know, it's a suggestion, but I think Murray's point's quite valid.
Okay. Yeah, we can do that. So what then it would come back through in as part of the footpath budgeting?
It would come back as a project.
Okay, so does
Yeah.
that work for you?
Yeah, I'm happy either way. I'm just here to, yep, that's fine by me. I'm not worried about how the process happens. I'm the doer.
Okay. All right. Okay, so that one item will come back to the board. And the other thing, Derek, with regards to moving the playground, so there would need to be some public consultation around that?
Yep. So what we'll do is we'll set up a plan in terms of how we're going to do that, and obviously the most affected will be the nearby neighbours, and we'll come back to the board in terms of the results of that consultation exercise. So we're not just talking about the equipment at that point, we'll be talking just about the location.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Okay, so other than that one item regarding Meadow Drive, Cook Drive walkway, was there anything else that anyone else had questions on? Bill, I see your hand is up. Bill, you might want to unmute your computer.
Okay, right. Just that line was referring to the Ferry landing footpath, not the Meadow Drive one. I'm a bit confused.
That's me. I'm just working. Remember, I'm coming in as a sub, I guess. So I will need a little bit of support team. I've read the agenda, but this is new to me. So if you can just give me a bit of direction, I can make these work a little bit better for you.
Yes.
So requested.
Just that item 3. I just want to make sure that it's the right footpath that is being removed. It says Ferry landing, but I thought we were talking about Meadow.
So
I may be wrong.
Meadow. Could someone give me the full name, please?
It's Meadow Drive.
Yeah.
Drive.
Yeah. Great.
But what we're saying is it would come back to the board for discussion, right? As a project.
Yeah, that's my understanding.
That's a suggestion, yes.
Yeah.
Right. Recently, the Meadow Drive footpath will be brought back to the board for full consideration. Thank you.
Is that the next meeting? Is there a time frame around that? And is there a time frame on that consultation request as well?
I'll take some guidance from Derek. Is it possible to come back with regards to Meadow Drive to the next meeting, to have a paper ready for the next meeting?
Your deadlines for the next meeting's in about a week's time, isn't it? No, sorry, 2 weeks' time, isn't it? Yeah, should be right.
Okay, fantastic. And in terms, so next meeting, Jen, please. And in terms of the consultation around the playground moving to the Maiwai Sports Park.
That'll probably be a little bit longer.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
I'll work with Heather on terms of updating you after this.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, so just with those changes, is there anything else anyone wanted to mention? Jeremy, have you still got your hand up, or is that historic?
Probably, but I'll put it down.
Okay, fantastic. I see it on the screen. Yeah. Right, so with those changes, resolutions, which you can see on your screen now, all those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Hi.
Aye.
Apologies, Rika, you went out. Could you just remind me of the mover and seconder, please? Because I did not hear them.
Oh, I'm sorry. I may not have done that. I apologise. Sorry. Can I please get a mover and a seconder for the report?
I'll move it.
Thanks, Deli.
I'll second
Seconded
that.
by Jeremy. Thank you. And then we've done all those in favour. Against? There being none. Carried. All right. Next item is 3.2, which is the Omara Reserve Masarangi Boat and Fishing Club Room request. Can I get a mover and a seconder for this report, please?
I'll move it.
Moved by Deli, thank you. Seconded by
I'll do that.
Bill, thank you. All right, do we have any discussion? Take the resolution as it is. All those in favour? Sorry?
The resolution's got two parts. There's one resolution to approve and one to not approve.
Yeah.
No, one is to receive the report and the second is to decline the request.
Okay, that's all right. That's where I was.
Okay. So all those in favour to accept the resolutions as they are, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, opposed?
Thank you.
None. Carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Right, which takes us to item 3.3 on page 49, which is our request for council land for pensioner and assisted living housing. May I have a mover and a seconder for the report, please?
Yeah, I'll move it.
Moved by Jeremy, seconded by
I'll second.
Bill. Okay, thank you. Murray has his hand up. Murray.
Yeah, I have a little bit of, this has come to the board a number of times. I have a little bit of 1, I have no problem with 1. I have no problem with 2. 3 and 4. 3, we heard from Alison today that they're not interested in that land, those 2 pieces of land. So I think that could be taken out. And 4, we've got 10 years for the bowling club on their lease and their long-term plans. I don't think it's fair to ask the bowling club with 10 years out, this town is going to change in 10 years, and I'd like that removed. So I only would support items clause 1 and 2. I think 3, they've already negated that, and I think 4, we're too far out to make any of those decisions. The whole council have changed by then, and I think it's just unnecessary work.
Yeah, I'd agree with you on point 3, Murray. On 4, I really, I think what the emphasis was when we had this discussion last time, it wasn't about the long-term plan. It was about that area that they refer to as the overflow car park that currently isn't really being utilised. It's that long.
Yeah, but the problem is that what we're making a decision, and the decision is not one for today about a piece of land being underutilised. The decision we make today will impact on the green spaces in this town in 50 years' time. And the decision we make today, if we put the land into pensioner housing, we're tying that land up in perpetuity. We're not tying it up for today, we're tying it up in perpetuity. So I think we've got to be very careful, and you say open the dialogue about the long-term plans. I think we are looking at a very, very short term, and the bowling club lease expires in 10 years. There's going to be a lovely piece of land there, which may get used for a swimming pool one day. It's already been discussed for a number of things. If we cut that out now, then we're cutting off where we can go in the future, and I think we've got to be very cautious. So I think it needs a lot more. Before that, I'd clause 3, I'd rather it gets referred to a workshop for further discussion. I'd accept that. And then we can decide it rather than clause.
Okay, all right. Any other comments?
Hi, I've got my hand up. This has been around for a while, and I think the need is very clear and present, and that I can understand the frustration from Alison and her team. So I think we need to expedite the process and get a workshop going as soon as possible, so that they can move on. I mean, we had Mr. Whiting talking about wanting to get a shovel out and start building accessible housing for his son and other young people in the community in the same situation, and it does just feel like it's dragging on. I accept Murray's comments, but we need to give these guys some clear direction as soon as possible.
Yeah, I certainly agree with that. I really feel, I mean, I support Murray's comments about point 3 if they feel that land's not suitable, but I still feel like point 4 could be resolution. Point 4 could be somewhat modified so that conversation could start. I mean, they may absolutely just say no, not an option, and then we're able to take that off the table entirely. Not about their long-term plans, about some space that they have that's currently underutilised. Jeremy, I see you've got your hand up.
Yeah, I think I'm in the same camp. I think we need a workshop this quickly. I'm a bit with you, Rick. I do support, especially if we're going to bring it to a workshop, it would be good to open that dialogue with the bowling club to see if it's actually a viable option from their side. I do understand the point is with a 10-year lease, are we locking that land up for a considerable amount of time in the future where it could be utilised for something else? But this is a pretty worthy cause in my opinion. So I think it's certainly at the least it deserves to go to workshop in the very near future.
Okay, all right. Murray, you had your hand up.
I'm happy if it goes to workshop. If we do 1 and 2 and go to workshop, and that really is you're aligning with what you're saying, Rika. Send it to workshop, and we can decide where we're going from there. And we haven't predetermined anything with staff. We haven't set them on a wild goose chase, and we can give it some real good hard thought.
Okay, Heather, if this comes to a workshop, I mean, this is something that I'd really like to see us do sooner rather than later. And Delhi's right; they've been to us a number of times, and you know, it's something that does. I feel like it has dragged on. Particularly, I remember when Mr. Whiting first came, I sort of reasonably newly joined the board, so this has been going around the table for some time. So Heather, is this something we could do in the very near future? I know maybe not the September workshop, but the one following.
I really feel like I can't really answer that, Rika. It would probably be Derek would be better to respond to that. What his work frame and timetable would be like to workshop that.
When's the next workshop due?
September, but I'm
8th of September. But our I think our report end date is only in a couple of days.
Well, I could potentially put a ghost cover report in and then accumulate enough information to present it to the board and then get the board's input on the day, if you'd accept that.
Well, that sounds like a good way forward, and that would be available for our September workshop.
Yes, I'll try to meet that deadline. Just for clarity, you want to assess open space options and strike them off the list or put them on the list, and whether or not they're actually ones that I've assessed. You want me to go wider than the central area of Whitianga? Can you give me a little bit of guidance on that? What you want me to look at and bring to the board?
I would imagine just the ones in the central location, because those are the ones that this group would feel necessary or appropriate or work within their needs. Murray and Jeremy, I see you've both got your hands up.
Yeah, it shouldn't be up, but whatever.
Who are you calling?
Sorry, Murray, you go.
I think we need very little from Derek. I think if we just take this paper as it's read, as it is here, and refer this paper with the third thing that we're referring the report to the board, refer this whole paper to the board workshop, we can discuss it then, and then we can go forward as to what we want to do. So I don't think it needs a lot of input from Derek at all. I think this paper is the basis of our workshop discussion. So I don't think, you know, Derek, we're not saying you need a lot of work from you at all.
Okay, appreciate that. Thank you, Mark.
Jeremy?
No, I've got nothing to add at the moment.
Okay, Foxy?
I just really support what Murray said, and I might add that if there's consideration about shifting that playground at Mowai, maybe that opens up another option. And so for that reason, I agree. I think we just need our discussion. It's more a philosophical one about where do we actually sit on pensioner and assisted housing, and then where does that sit in relation to open space? Given exactly what Murray said, we're not talking about today, we're talking about in 50 years' time, and open space will be at a premium.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Tony. Bill? You might want to unmute, Bill.
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, I can now.
Okay, I'm just saying that I'm agreeing with Tony. I agree that we've got enough to take Derek's report and have a deeper discussion without having to prepare a new report.
Okay, so the suggested resolutions 1 and 2 will stay the same, and we'll add a third, which is we refer this report to our September 2021 board workshop for further discussion.
Thank you.
Okay, all right.
Apologies, can you clarify if I'm removing number 4?
Yeah, I think so at this stage.
Okay.
Right, everyone should be able to see the amended resolutions on their screen. give you a chance to have a quick read over before I ask all those in favour?
No,
Okay.
we're taking number 4 out too at the moment, till after
Yes.
the workshop.
It's crossed
It's been
out.
removed.
Oh, sorry, yep, sorry.
I'm deleting
Didn't come
that.
up showing on my screen too well. That's right.
Okay. All right. So all those in favour, please say aye.
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 Against? None carried. All right. Thank you. Tony, you've got your hand up, or is that just historic?
That's to say, aye.
Thank you. All right, item 3.4 on page 63 is the Jack Mills Reserve amenity value. May I have a mover and a seconder for this report, please?
I'll move.
Moved by Delhi, seconded by Tony. Thank you. Any discussion? So I put the resolutions as they are, which is receive the report and approves option 1, which is status quo, to resolve that the Jack Mills Reserve be retained. All those in favour, please say aye.
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 Against? There being none, carried. All right, fantastic. Thank you, Derek.
Thank you. Right.
Okay, so that's taking us to option item 5, which is the commercial operator licenses on council reserves. May I have a mover and a seconder for the report, please? Tony, seconded by Bill. Was that your hand going up? Yes, thank you. Okay. I have a question. So, Derek, we initially decided that those that had concessions were being rolled over, but we did ask if there were any additional concessions. Is that correct?
Correct.
People wanting to apply for additional concessions.
Yep.
So these people would just get that for this year?
Correct.
Okay. Are we able to understand, or do you have an understanding of, I know that the likes of Wigmore Stream, hugely popular in the last round, were there businesses and things that were turned away, or concession applications that were turned away for that area?
Off the top of my head, I can't remember, but sorry, I've just remembered something else. Jen, could you please run that PowerPoint? There's been a lot happening this morning, so I'm not as organised as I could be. But we prepared a little PowerPoint in the background, and which hopefully may be able to give you a little bit more information and confidence.
Okay, great.
Sorry to put that on you now, Jen. If you can't, I'll try and dig it up.
Oh, it's happening right away.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, she's doing it.
Okay, awesome. So, and certainly in terms of the last advertising that we did, we got a few, I think it's mentioned in the report, a few tire kickers and people questioning and sounding interested. And yet we actually only got 2 formal applications. So this is a rehash of you've seen this before, but what I've done is I've added additional information into it. So if you can move to the next slide, please, Jen. Thank you. Okay, so again, that gives you that summary, advertising when it took place, the applications, the inquiries, and so it boiled down to 2 new applications for 6 different locations. And that final point gives you an idea as to sort of what we have to go through as staff to make sure that everything's in accordance. Next slide, please, Jen. Now, hopefully that can be read. You've seen this slide before, as in the top portion. That's our commercial operators who already have the existing licenses. And the new ones are the bottom 2 lines. So that gives you a bit of a summary as you move from left to right, the name of the operator, their activity, what they're trying to do, food and beverage or snorkel tour, the sites that they've requested, recommended, approved and declined. And then as you move over, you can see the sites, if you might have to turn your head, as to where there's already existing activities and where that aligns. So Quarry Point, you can see there's already 1 existing operator there that has a license. Wigmore Stream, we've got 2 other operators. And Purangi Reserve, it is looking a little bit crowded, but again, they're not there all at the same time. And you can see that we've declined or suggested that we decline from Hahei Village entry car park for the reasons that it's not a reserve. I think you're well aware of that. And also decline KB's food and beverage trailer from Whangapawa, even though there is no existing operators at that site or at those sites that they've requested. There is a bricks operation very close by to one of those sites, and the second site is, I believe, too congested. Not sure if there's any more slides, Jen, but if you could please roll on. Thank you. Here we go. So that gives you a very simplistic breakdown. Hopefully that's enough information for you. And thank you, Jen. There is more. That gives you an idea as to where specifically they actually asked to be. So that's the food and beverage operation. And the other one is fairly self-explanatory. Thank you so much, Jen. Sorry to put that pressure on you. Appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Okay, thank you. So hopefully that was a little bit of backgrounding information that helps explain the rationale as to why we've come to these decisions, or why we're recommending these decisions to you. Okay.
Okay, all right. Thank you. That's a really a good summary. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any comments from board members? Any discussion? No? Okay, so the recommendation itself has got lots of parts. Sorry, the resolution has got lots of parts. So let us just move through that line by line. So item 2 recommends council the following license be declined, and that would be the Cathedral Cove Dive, and that's at the Hahei Village Entry Car Park, KB's, and that's at both of the Whangapawa sites. Right?
Great.
Anyone got any comments on those as we move through? Yep. Right, and then the following be approved, and that is the Cathedral Cove Dive at the Wigmore Stream Reserve and Purangi Reserve, and Derek, Purangi Reserve, even though it's quite congested, you're confident that they won't be overlapping in terms of timings? Well,
again, it's rather than so what we find as officers, and you may have different experiences, but the congestion is created by generally the food operators, or they're the ones that bring more people to a site. The activity operators generally, they come and go, and there'll be a relatively small volume of vehicles or traffic, and then they're off. It's not all cases quite like that, but I believe that we've got enough in Purangi to allow this operation to happen.
Right. Because I had that kind of same concern for Wigmore Stream, because that's where the visitors come and they all put their tractors, isn't it? That's the main launching area at that end of the beach. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Right. Okay. Jeremy, I see you got your hand up.
Yeah, just a couple of questions for Derek. Firstly, I just want to make a comment regarding that end of the beach. You obviously make comment about the food ones, but for sure there's been a historic problem with parking from the commercial operators down that end of the beach. Parking in around private property and stuff. I guess going forward, and so I clearly understand the process, is this, if this goes ahead and we grant this particular concession, it would be reviewed next year along with the wider group. This doesn't set a precedent for this to be a standard extra operator that's operating currently off that beach, because obviously the Hāʻi community has always been not against, but very mindful of the fact that the beach does get pretty overrun at periods of the year, and obviously pre-COVID. So I guess what I'm asking is, we're essentially adding another concession, even though it's an existing company. We're adding another concession, and I just want to understand the process when we come to next round of concessions next year. How will it be looked at, I guess?
Okay. Through the chair, it's a good question, Jeremy. So at the last workshop, when I came to talk to you about commercial operators, we're proposing a weighted tender model. So I'm preparing a paper at the moment to take that to council. If that gets approval, then we will come to the board and work through specific sites such as Wigmore Stream and Purangi to figure out what the thresholds were for the for instance, Purangi, we might want to accept 2 food operators and 3 activity operators. That's the process that we will work through. So come the new annual plan, we would have the weighted tender option. So we would say that, okay, we're putting out 2 food operating locations at Purangi. What are you prepared to pay for that? And put that to the open market. And we may have 3 activity operators, a similar sort of thing. So the way I see it is that the board is helping drive to set the limits of the activities that are happening at those locations. The first step is to get the weighted tender model approved by council. And like I say, that will happen at the next, well, that will be presented at the next council meeting anyway. Okay.
Right, Delhi. Jeremy, did you have another question before we move?
No, that's fine.
Yeah, Delhi?
He's got his hand up just for attention. He's attention seeking. Just to clarify with Derek, that weighted tender model, we were looking at factors such as cultural significance as well, and whether or not it's appropriate to have a food purveyor, for example, on a particular site or reserve. So I understand you're going to have to work through what those formula are and what the different aspects of them are. And it will obviously.
Sorry.
Delhi, I think you've muted yourself.
Oh, that's, yeah. So you will be, will you be coming back to us with a formula, or will that be a council-wide formula that you develop in Thames?
Yeah, it will be a council-wide formula, but I would imagine that, you'd have something along the lines of aesthetics. You don't want some house bus or something with massive logos on it, for instance. So that would be a key component. Cultural sensitivities, etc., would probably be a key component as well. But it's to do with the weighting on that,
Yes.
and of course, price is one there as well. So
Yeah.
when we set those percentages, we figure out whether or not those are the items that we want to approve in our reserves. It might be, for instance, it could be a key conundrum. So if we put a 40% weighting on price, and somebody comes up with a fantastic price that blows everybody else out of the water, but as part of it, they have massive hoardings as a proposal. You'd have to weigh that up in terms of whether or not price beats everything, or whether the other components are actually, key attributes as well.
Yeah, so that's probably where my concern lies, is that the council develops a model, say, where cultural sensitivity or aesthetic or significant landscape or whatever had a more significant weighting than price. So, for example, Mercury Bay Community Board won't have any input into what that weighting model looks like.
I suppose I'll seek the guidance from council. So at the moment, I suppose what I'm trying to do is make sure that I can get stuff into the annual plan. And I suppose the details will come later, but certainly the details in terms of the number of activities and what type of activities on the reserve. I'll present some items to the council in terms of would they like to accept this weighted tender model, and these are potential options. They may determine that I go back and workshop with the boards, but the idea I would hope would be that there would be one model that fits all across the district. And you have to consider or remember that on the slideshow that I showed you, the number of concessionaires or licensed operators that Mercury Bay actually has. Thames has one. I think Coromandel has one. Whangamata has about 8, and TP has 1 or 2. So you do have the lion's share. So yeah, we'll look to council for that guidance, I suppose.
Okay. So does that answer your question, Deli?
Yep, I'm happy. I was just wondering if there was any space for any recommendations from Mercury Bay, seeing as we do have the most concessions, of perhaps how we'd like to see it weighted, but I'm happy to see what you come up with, Derek.
Thank you, but I'll take your comments aboard.
So going back to the applications that we have here, I mean, I'll be really honest. I know that Wigmore Stream and Purangi both get really busy and congested with visitors, and I sort of look to Derek and say, do you think that the space is able to cope with additional concessionaires in that space?
Well, I mean, that's my recommendation, but again, this is coming back to the board. So if you want to override that, then override it. It's your, your power as a board.
Yeah, that's just the two areas that I know we often have. I think Jeremy's been kicked out and trying to get back in. That we have the most congestion. Did anyone else have any comments or thoughts or concerns around that same sort of thinking that I've got? Or
yeah, Rika, I dropped out. I missed quite a lot of it at the end of it. Yeah, I just want to make the point that essentially we're allowing another concession, a new concession off that beach, which has always been against what the community have asked for. So I guess I just want to make that clear. Maybe when we come to do the next round, we can revisit that, but that's essentially what we're agreeing to.
That's correct. And so what I suppose the key point is, you've hit the nail on the head, is that, the intention is that at some stage she sells her business. One side of it, she retains one side and sells. So you could have potentially another operator.
Yes.
That does require the approval of council. So, but again, coming back to you did miss a key point, Jeremy. If you, as a board, wanted to overturn these recommendations, then that is your prerogative. And you know the sites better than I do.
Murray? You might want to unmute, Murray. I can't see him.
I've listened to what has gone backwards and forth, and I know the history of Ferry and I know the history of Wigmore Stream. And personally, I don't think we should let another person on either of those. I think we're asking for a community stoush. I think they're at their peak now in the summer, and I would cancel both those.
Well, that's my feeling as well. Like it's just at such a premium.
This is what we were elected to do. We're elected to make decisions for our communities, and we've got to have the strength to make those decisions.
Okay, thank you, Murray. Tony?
I'm in that camp myself.
Okay, so if we were then to revisit, sorry, I should ask Bill or Deli, did you have anything that you wanted to add before we revisit these resolutions?
I actually think that Smitty's right. Being a Hahei resident, he gets to see the congestion on the beach over summer. And yeah, that does remind me that we've had this conversation about not sort of allowing more concessionaires in that situation until we've got this tendering model well worked out and we reassess the whole shooting match in one go. So yeah, I kind of agree with what's been said.
Okay, thank you. And Bill?
I've got no experience of the congestion there, but Jeremy's point is very valid. He's the one that's going to cop it if the people don't think it's a good idea. I would suggest we hold off and review it at some future time. So that's my view.
So
Chair, Rika,
yes.
Can I just add one thing just before we sort of wrap it up? What I would say is, look, all I'm suggesting is maybe we hold off and look at it as a rather than piecemeal now, we look at it as a whole. I'm not suggesting we shouldn't add another concession because maybe that's the right decision, but maybe we look at it as when all the applicants come in and we look at it as a whole, whether we look at the whole process rather than doing it sort of a bit ad hoc now, I guess.
Okay, so that Cathedral Cove dive did ask for a quarry point as well, which is at Kuatunu, the boat ramp area. So would we look at granting that or just holding off on this entire concession and look at it all in the new round next year?
I would support allowing the quarry point for sure.
For me, that's the one that doesn't have the big sort of congestion issues as these other two that we keep sort of hearing from the public. Bill, is your hand up historically or is this new?
I agree with what Jeremy has just said.
Okay, so if we revisit the recommendations to point 2, we would be adding declining the request for Cathedral Cove dive at Wigmore Stream and at Purangi Reserve. That would move up to point 2, but council approve a license, approve commercial activities for Cathedral Cove dive at Quarry Point. I'm just waiting for Jen.
Something like that.
Yeah, you're very good.
Something close. And we go down here and we remove. Are we close?
Yes, that's it. Okay, so
just a quick thought, Rika. Quarry
yes.
Point is the boat ramp, isn't it, at Kuatunu that has an awful lot of congestion from people parking, launching their boats.
Yeah, over summer, yeah, you're right, absolutely. Okay.
Any thoughts, anyone?
Yep, so Tony, are you?
I think you decline them all and we go down the track until we actually get to the stage and we basically go to tender and not do anything piecemeal, because I agree. Quarry Point will have more parking there than Wigmore Stream on certain conditions. So to be consistent, I'd say no to all of them, and till we come up with where we're heading. And at that point, we may find we got more or less, and do it in one hit. That'd be me.
All right, thanks for that, Tony. Murray. You may want to unmute, Murray.
Yeah, I'd support declining Quarry Point as well. It's chaos out there in the summer.
All right. Okay, so the new resolution, I keep trying to scroll up to read it, Jen, but I realise you're in charge.
I am in charge.
So basically, the recommendation to council would be that we decline the request of Cathedral Cove Dive at all 4 sites that they applied for, and the same for KB's in Whangapoa. So Jen will just tidy that up, and then we will take a vote.
It's a little slow today, so it's reacting after I put it in, but we're getting there.
Right. Okay.
It's
So
on COVID response.
yeah, it thought it was going to have the day off like the rest of the country. Right, here we go. So everyone should be able to see the new recommendation on their screen. I'll just give you a second to read it. All those in favour, please say aye. Thanks, Tony.
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Against? None. Carried. All right. Thank you. Thanks, Derek. Thanks, Jen.
Thank you very much, board.
Right. Now our next item is our board work program. Does everybody feel like they might like to take 5 minutes to have a comfort stop and make a cup of tea, or would you like to keep going?
Let's push on.
Is it getting late there, Jeremy?
20 to 1, but it's all right.
Where's Smitty at the moment?
Mallorca.
Mallorca.
It's got a
Oh,
bit of a tan already.
right. Poor Smitty.
4.1, page 91, our work program. I don't know if Bruce is here.
Yes, Bruce is here.
Bruce is here. Hi, Bruce.
Hi.
Hey, Bruce is wearing a suit.
I have to maintain the standard and, more importantly, my reputation.
Okay.
Good on you.
How come we can't see Brucey? Oh, there you are. There you are. Kia ora.
Kia ora. Good morning, board. So this is the first work program of the financial year. What I've been talking about with the other boards is that we kind of run a 13-month year. So July is really the 13th month of the year, and the teams are very focused on closing off the previous year's projects and all the finances and everything. So not a lot of work actually happens on the this year's projects in July, but they're well stuck into them now. Now that we're kind of halfway through August, what you'll see on that work program as well is it's as at 1 July. So that's why there's zero expenditure on all those projects. But things are moving forwards. Money is being spent and progress is being made now. Happy to take any questions. We obviously have a few personnel changes coming through the project delivery team over the next little while, which is a natural process of staff turnover. Andrew Bowden and myself have put a few things in place around external consultants and contractors to help us keep moving forwards, because we do have that big capital program to deliver. So happy to take any questions on any of that.
All right, any questions of Bruce? We're not going to let him off the hook that easy. He put a suit on.
I just do love the schedule and the way it's laid out, and really appreciate the work that goes into it. It's just so easy to follow.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Dally. Yeah, we have made a few tweaks and tried to just continually improve it and make it a little bit easier to understand. And yeah, I agree. I think it's working well.
Right. Okay. Well, I think this may
I've got a
be.
meeting, Gary. I'll call.
Oh, Bill, can you? Thank you. This may be the easiest time the Mercury Bay Community Board has ever given you. No questions. Right. I think I need a mover and a seconder to receive the report.
I'll move it.
Thank you, Deli.
I'll
Thank
second that.
Thanks. All those in favour, please say aye.
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 Opposed? None. Carried. That's fantastic. Thanks, Bruce.
Thank you, board.
And our next item is on page 96. It's 5.1, the rates remission request from community groups. And we've had a couple of speakers at public forum. Morning, Judy.
Morning.
This morning. Can I get a mover and a seconder to receive the report, please?
Yeah, I'll move it.
Yeah, I'll second.
Thank you, Jeremy and Deli. Morning, Judy.
Morning. I mainly just wanted to actually check if there was any questions. I take the report that's been read, and in relation to I did actually notice on the suggested resolutions that one of the community boards was omitted from there. So the Whitianga Community Services Trust also qualified, and their $2,297.16 has not been noted on that resolution. So there is 5 that could be approved by the community board.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, just any questions, Jeremy?
Yeah, thanks for the report. I found it a little bit hard to follow initially, but so just so I'm 100% clear, what we're asking for is that the rates part would be covered by council, but the wastewater, water, and would be then covered by the sports trust or whatever particular case it was. Is that what the suggestion is?
That's correct. So the policy doesn't cover the service charges on the rates, and the majority of the community boards, and this is district wide, not just Mercury Bay, do just have service charges because the properties are leased from TCDC and they are non-rateable for general rates. Then the service charges are still payable by the community board, by the community sporting groups. So the options that we do have is that the community board approved for the 100%, which is noted on there for the 5 community boards that have been met. They have met the criteria, and the alternative for these are that we as staff contact the community boards that only have service charges and talk to them about other options to apply under miscellaneous purpose or under a hardship remission policy if that's required. Some people haven't applied under the remission policy at all, and I believe there was 4. Sorry, I'm just checking my notes. There were 2 groups that actually met the criteria, but they didn't apply. So we can contact those community sports groups and advise them that they may qualify under this policy. In relation to the miscellaneous purposes remission policy, there may be an option that some community sports groups have several PAN charges, and this was met. I heard, I think it was Peter that mentioned it earlier on in the forum, public forum, that some people have 7 PAN charges and others may only have 1 or 2, and we need to look at it is that fair that just because they've got more PANs that they get charged more on that situation. So what we're asking the community board is, would you like us to go back and discuss it with the sporting groups to possibly apply under a different remission policy where they don't qualify under this one, to allow them to have the option to be covered with the miscellaneous purposes, or if they're in a hardship situation? It just gives an alternative rather than having to on-charge them and then them come back and say,
we can't afford to pay this, or why is it not fair for one community sports as it is to another to only have one pay in charge where we've got 7 in the likes of even the Mercury Bay Rugby Club. They did bring that up with myself in a telephone conversation.
Yeah, so just so I've got a clear understanding, is previously there wasn't an additional charge that was there for services. Is it?
Yes, there was an additional charge, and Community Board actually did resolve to pay those service charges. However, under the policy, there was no authorisation or delegation for the Community Board to pay those, and it was paid out of the charges were never on charge to the Community Sports Club. And whether that was a misunderstanding or miscommunication in the past, we just want to make sure, which is why we're trying to bring it to the community boards, to make sure that it's transparent and we definitely know what obviously the community board has delegation for and what the council can do from the remission policy side.
Okay. Any further questions, Jeremy?
No, not for now.
Okay, I see, Tony, you got your hand up.
Yeah, I don't have any really issues with this, but philosophically, I think as a district, there should be criteria about who would qualify and who doesn't. And we don't, those who won't pay, don't pay. I would say the discussion's gone on for ages, and, you know, I remember Thames that, you know, had 7 paying charges for the squash club. So there's no consistency. And for me, it doesn't matter whether you're a sports club in Whitianga or Thames or Coromandel, where you are, or a social organisation that would qualify. I think we just need to get a head around that because at the end of the day, the ratepayer pays. So I just think if you're an organisation that qualifies, then you qualify and that's the end of it. It's quite right, the discussion is for a local family, they either use the toilet at home, or if they're down at the pub, they use that one, or if at the sports club, they use that one. So in terms of the demand on infrastructure, apart from providing it, nothing changes. You might argue when 100 people come from Waimataa to Lyon Park, that's additional, but you know, we go over there too. So I think it's a part of a district-wide thing. And I just like to pick up on the rugby club. So I pick up on what they say, and the ground is ours, and they don't pay rates on the ground. And yet, when we have tried to use the ground where it doesn't impact on the activities of the rugby club, and where we would leave it in the state that we got it in, we've had opposition. So I'll just sort of get to the point, you can't have your cake and eat it too, from that perspective. Albeit I absolutely support what they're saying, but if we've got a use for that ground, and I can think about overflow parking, if the ground's available and it doesn't impact on what the rugby club do, whether it be rugby, touch, or any other activity they promote, yeah, we need to be mindful of, we should be able to use it as we see fit. But anyhow, I just think a district-wide policy on remissions for these would be helpful.
If I can just say through the board, by offering the other remission policies, obviously this section 6 under the remission policy for community sporting is actually done at a local level. So it's done by community board and locally charged for rates. If you were to cover that and pay these under that policy. If we do go under the miscellaneous purpose or the financial hardship policy, they are district rated. So sporting communities or non-profit groups in your area will obviously then be funded across the district. So we need to keep that in, take that into consideration also. It's not just a Mercury Bay area that would be covering those under that remission policy. It will be a whole district cover.
Yeah, I appreciate that. All I'm suggesting, there should be consistency. So that's what it is now, but I think there should be consistency because to me, a sporting or community organisation in Mercury Bay is actually no different than one in Thames or anywhere else. We are all providing the same amenity value for our communities. And it would be ironic to me that if you live in Thames, you don't qualify, and if you live in Whitianga, you do, or vice versa, etc. So I clearly understand the issue, but I just think it's one that we need to address to have consistency within our district. That's all I've got no more to add.
Thank you, Tony. And I do, the ones going through the miscellaneous purpose would need to come through, obviously, the Audit and Risk Committee, where we could discuss it across the board to try, if there's required changes that may be for the community sporting clubs and others. And I do agree with you. Some people are charged different pans, and Mercury Bay Sports Club may have 7 and Thames may have 2. And it may be something that needs to be discussed at a different level rather than under this policy.
Okay, so I have a question, and I found this difficult to follow. So the Mercury Bay Boating Club, just as an example, is a community group that will receive the rates remission. Is that purely because of the number of youth they have involved in their group?
That's because they are the actual community club. At that premises are actually it's a rateable property. So there are general charges that are on the property, and there's service charges. So the total rates for the property for their portion is the 3,000, but the amount that we're asking the community board if they'd like to actually propose for under the remission is the $1,600 worth of general rates only, which means that the additional charges would have to be on charged to the boating club.
Right, I see. Okay. Right. Okay, so we just need to, sorry, did anyone else have any comments before we look at this resolution? Bill?
Sorry, I'm a bit slow to put the mic on. I totally agree with Tony. We need to have consistency within our ward, and certainly I understand that we need to be consistent throughout the district. But why can't it be in a consolidated form, particularly with sporting groups? There might be some weird exceptions for non-sporting groups that have got some facilities, but for goodness sake, let's see if we can't achieve district similarity, because the point that Tony made about people coming to us for sporting activities and us going to them would level the playing field. And while we're not at home, then their rates will go down because there's no one there to use the toilets, for example. So we need to be consistent. That's all I'm asking.
Tony.
Thank you.
Yes, because it raises, so in terms of what the boating club offers our community, there's no greater or no less value than any other organisation. You choose what you want to do, and it provides a place for people for their well-being and betterment. But if you happen to be the golf club or the aero club or the Mercury Bay Game Fishing Club, and some of those look after 2,000 or 3,000 members, and they host events that bring 600 or 1,000 people to town, they pay. So that's so there's no consistency on. So I think you set up a club, you do great things in the community, and you pay $350 a year, and a little old person in a pensioner flat is subsidising that. So that's why I say this has been going on for as long as I've been around, and there's no consistency. That's all and I frankly don't mind which way it goes, so long as it is consistent and it's fair to everybody. Because otherwise you'd say, well, if you can't own your own land and can't own your own building, then you don't get anything, because that's what we do to the other people that do own their stuff. And we've got to think that's been paid for by the members. I'll say no more on
Thanks, Tony. Murray.
On this time. Yeah. Look, this is one issue, and I think we get this issue through and get it done. But what Tony says is the bigger issue that we've been trying probably for 10 years, I know of, that has never been addressed by council and got the policy correct. And I do think we as a board should write to council and ask for a review of the policy in terms of people like the game club and others, which are equally, and we've got the anomaly between the Walmata Game Club and the Mercury Bay one, and these have just been going round and round in circles. So I think I'd be all for passing this one and getting it done, but it'd also be note as a board we wish to have the whole policy addressed, and it'll take some work, but it really needs to be tidied up. And I'd actually love to see it done before Tony and I go, because we've been trying to get this done for years. And if we don't go, then someone's going to have to get all that institutional knowledge back again to follow it through. So if we could do that, I'd be just an aside note, Rebecca, that pass this, but as an aside, we would ask for, we as a board would write to still get staff to go through the whole policy.
Okay, I agree with that, because I think it needs to be tidied up and it needs to be fair. It doesn't feel fair right now.
If I can just comment. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. She's just asking if you could please advise which club was missed out, the Mercury Bay Community Services Trust, is that correct? And the amount.
That's correct. $2,297.16.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, you were going to respond to Murray.
Sorry, Rebecca. So I just wanted to actually comment. We need to, within the policy, which has obviously just been reviewed, Donna and myself and Hayden have all put quite a bit of time in to review these prior to the 1st of July, which was all taken to the Audit and Risk Committee the way that it's meant to be able to review it, to have the changes made. One of the things with Section 6 with the community sporting and other non-profit organisations is we have to make sure that the groups are not, obviously their trading revenue is not higher than their donations or their gifts. So, and that comes into effect as well. So if a sporting group has obviously got is classed as trading, and their revenue for that is much higher than what their the revenue that they get from donations or from membership and things like that, we need to take that into consideration of the money that they've got coming through the door for whether they would apply under or whether they would qualify under the remission.
Okay. Tony.
I pick up what Judy's just said, but of course I've never seen that data, but I would suspect that our local rugby club would have far more revenue go through their bar than they get by subscriptions and donations. And yeah, we are talking about waiving this. So, and I appreciate that as a worthy consideration about what their revenue is. But yeah, I've never seen a report to show me what it is. And philosophically, you know, I'd say it doesn't matter.
Just in response to that, Tony, Mercury, the Rugby and Sports Club, we're not asking for you to remit or have them under the remission. They've actually just got service charges on their property, so they would actually be on charge for that $2,400 odd to pay for just the service charges, and they will be one of the groups that we would contact if agreed by the community board, to ask them if they would like to go underneath a miscellaneous purpose, put an application into that. That doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to be approved or declined. It would just come to the Audit and Risk Committee as a group of all the different groups within the district, to ask Audit and Risk
to review that to see whether there is some fair and equity regarding the pan charges and so on each of the properties.
And
My
is this
view is it's piecemeal, and we say audit and risk. In my mind, there really isn't one. It's council with an external chair for the meeting. So when things come through bit by bit, you deal with it with what you got in front of you, and you turn up another day, and lo and behold, there's another one. I just think if we have the policy that is consistent across the board, and everybody knows where they stand, and nothing comes back to anybody for further review, unless there's an error in it or there's new circumstances. That's all. Because remissions come through that committee regularly. Every audit committee meeting, which is actually a council meeting, they come there. But for something like this, I actually think it's a bit different than a property that is enclosed and you can't get to it, and there's no access in, no access out, and it's worthless land. So yeah, I agree that those crop up from time to time when properties change hands. So yeah, I think it's a bigger issue than what we're dealing with, and I still support going for a policy that's consistent.
When we do come to council, Tony, we will actually have all 5 community boards, the results from all of the community sports groups that lease TCDC properties, and they will come as one report. So you won't have some come one meeting and then one more come in another meeting. We will gather all the information from all the sports groups and community groups and bring them as one report.
all right then? Do we have other questions of Judy? No? Okay. I agree with what's been said here. I feel like it needs to have an overall holistic district view on it, and I think it needs to have some fairness. But let's I see Jen's added the group that was missed out as well to that resolution. So let's look at this resolution. It's a long one, so we'll need to go through it all.
I apologize, Rika. I am concerned I didn't hear the number for the Mercury Bay Community Services Trust. I just want to clarify that so we have it all up correct.
Okay.
Judy, you'll be able to.
$2,297.
Yes.
And 16 cents, so 16.
Thank you. Happy with that. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Jen.
Start from the top.
Yes, so I was just going to say, let's do this one by one. The suggested resolutions 3.1 receives the report. 3.2 approves the following rates remissions under the council's rate remission policy, and that is the Boating Club, St. John's, Whitianga Bike, the Scouts Association, and Community Services Trust, which has just been added. I don't have on mine a 0.3. Is that right, Jen? A 3.3?
Wonder if it was a misstep. Judy might be able to offer a little bit of feedback on that. Judy, is that just a what I would say a clerical issue?
I think it was a formatting issue.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. So then we would go on to what is in my document as 0.4, but which would become 0.3. Request staff to contact the community groups that meet the criteria for remission but have not applied. Yes. Request staff to contact community groups that are required to pay service charges and advise them of financial hardship remission. Request staff to contact community groups paying multiple PAN charges and advise them to apply for relief under the rates remission policy, miscellaneous purposes, and approves 100% remission for the 2022-23 and 23-24 rating years on the general rate, UAGC and targeted rates, except for targeted rates on water, wastewater, solid waste, loan charges for community groups listed in Resolution 2.
I've added in that 7th. If you'd like me to delete it, I was just listening into the conversation, so happy to take it out.
Yes, no, this is, I was going to say, Alisa, but this is fine. We are requesting that staff undertake a further review of the policy with a focus on ensuring fairness across the district. Right, all those in favour of those resolutions as they are on your screen, please say aye. Tony, thank you.
Aye.
Thank you. Against? There being none, carried. Okay, thanks, Judy. We got there.
Thank you, board.
Thank you.
Thanks, Judy.
Right, so that takes us to item 6.1, which is the tsunami siren paging system. And that's on page 103. I'm not sure who we've got from staff online.
My understanding that this will be a report. There won't be anybody speaking to this report.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you. Can I have a mover and a second to receive the report? Thanks, Tony. Seconded by?
Yep, I'll second it.
Thanks, Jeremy. Any discussion, Bill? I see you've got your hand up. Very quick. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm just still somewhat bemused that Linda has said that she hasn't had any further information from Gary Towler. And my understanding was that this is outside of our ability to make changes. I thought this was a direction from Wellington. So I am a bit confused that the sirens were going. That's my point.
Okay. I can't comment on any of that. I believe that she has had some info from Gary with regards to the official information requests that were submitted. I don't know, Tony, do you want to, or would you like me to maybe just give a bit of a summary of that ratepayer chairs meeting that we attended?
I'm happy to report what I took from that meeting.
Yeah, that's great. I've done a lot of talking, so go for it.
The majority of the ratepayer chairs were in attendance at that meeting, including the chair of the Mercury Bay Ratepayer Association. And with the exception of the lady representing Wharikaho, all other ratepayer associations, whilst acknowledging concern and sirens, they accept what is the government and national statement in terms of how do you deal with this. And there is no support from them whatsoever to be funding sirens. They think that using nature as a start point, so if you hear it, get gone, they all buy into that. And so I think I'm mindful of the work that these folk have done, but if you know the radio one, it's interesting, but how many people did respond and how much information they have, because what I came from the meeting that we had with Gary and the ratepayer chairs was that once they understood the national position and once they understood what the financial issues were, they were happy to adopt what is basically government policy now. So, and they will accept that if any community group wants to fund their own, all well and good. But that's what I took from it. And for that reason, I think from our community and from a council perspective, we've done all we can do with this issue. And but if any other groups specifically want to do their own thing, very willing to do so. That's That's my take on that, Rika.
Thanks, Tony. I appreciate that. And I think the other thing to add to that was that all of the chairs or their representatives that were there were very much on the path to creating their community emergency response plans, and that work was underway, and they all felt really comfortable with that. And so that was a good conversation to have. Interestingly, I had a call last night from the chair of the ratepayers for Otama, and he had gone on to follow up with the Community Rural Connectivity Trust that Gary had mentioned to us, and it looks likely that Otama will be coming online because they have very little cell phone reception there later by the end of the year. So that's fantastic. So there's work happening. Gary also mentioned to us that Whisper, that new he said it wasn't an app, but it's a program, and that works through your landlines as well, that that you can subscribe to and get emergency alerts. So there's lots happening, and like Tony said, I feel really comfortable. Gary is a couple of the ratepayer chairs wanted some more time with Gary, more information, and he had committed to doing that, and that was for certainly for Wharekaho and Whirianga. So yeah, absolutely, I think there are things progressing, and the ratepayer chairs, certainly Hahei, very enthusiastic group, well on the way. They had offered to help Hotwater Beach get things rolling with their community response plan. So it was a good session.
It was very, very good.
Delhi, I see you've got your hand up.
Rika, can you, because I realise that there are people who will either watch this video or who are not members of council or the board, can you explain that rural connectivity thing that's happening at Otama in a little bit more detail, if you know any more information, because that's actually really interesting for people who are living quite remotely.
Yeah, so I can really only give you a headline, but I'm sure if people wanted to contact Gary, Taylor or Pam, they might be. So Gary just talked about the Rural Connectivity Trust, which I understand is the government has kind of sort of said to all the big telcos, you need to get together and you need to work on this and get this sorted. So areas that are rural where there isn't any coverage, you know, they're working obviously to bring cell coverage to those areas. And the chair from Otama, he just mentioned to me that he went and followed up after our meeting. That was in early August, and that was the outcome that he had been told. So
fantastic.
I'm here to find more information, but either Pam or Gary from the emergency response team would probably be a good start.
Awesome. Thanks, Rika.
No problem. Did anyone else have any comments or anything I wanted to share? No. So Jen, have we done a mover and a seconder to receive the report?
We have, Rika.
Fantastic. Thank you. So all those in favour? Tony, thanks.
Aye.
Against? There being none, carried. Okay, so we're getting there, team. We are now on item 6.2, which is our action schedule report. It's on page 105. Have a mover and a seconder to receive the report, please. Tony, thank you. Seconded by?
I will.
Delhi, thank you. Any comments? No? Okay, all those in favour? Please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None.
I'm a bit late. Sorry. That was an aye, not a nay.
Okay, thanks. Okay, against, there being none, passed, carried. Thank you. And that takes us to 6.3, which is our members' reports. So if you can, when I ask you to give your members' report, if you can turn your microphone on, that might be, your camera on, that might be useful if your connectivity allows. I'm just going to go around my screen. Murray, you are first. Would you like to give your members' report?
I have nothing to report, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Tony?
Nothing to report.
Goodness me, it's been a quiet few weeks. Bill?
I've had, oops,
Oh, I think Bill is gone.
can you hear me?
Yes, I see.
Okay,
I
fine.
can't see you now, but I can hear you.
Okay. A little bit like not much to report, though I've had several phone calls from a particular person getting quite anxious about the sirens or lack of, and in spite of me passing on advice that you're not going to get any comments from me because we've already had the advice, and apart from that, it's been quiet for me.
Okay, thank you. Deli, would you like to go next?
Yep, sure. Yes, as with Reka, we've had a lot of interactions over the cutting down of trees and what's happening at the reserve at Otama, and that's probably occupied my headspace the most, and that's an ongoing situation that's being dealt with by staff. Yeah, and I just want to make it public that I'm really disappointed in the Mayor's statement about COVID tracing that was in the New Zealand Herald today, and just to encourage everyone to continue using their tracing app. That's not a council message, that's the Mayor's personal opinion, but it's not helpful at the moment. I'm not very pleased about that.
Okay, thanks, Deli. Jeremy?
Hello. No, I don't have a lot to report either. The only thing that I've had of interest is been approached by one of the residents at Ferry Landing about speed bumps for the last corner as we come up just before the library, around that sort of blind corner. So I'm going to pass it on to Derek and Ed, the roadie, just to have a look at it. But yeah, that's all I've got really.
Okay, that leaves me, I think. Yeah, just following on from what Deli said about Otama and the trees, I've had lots of calls, emails, and even a meeting, also too, with a couple of different folks. But I know that staff have that in hand now, so thank you to those. Opeta Molochs, there's a lot of emails coming through about that as well, and I know the community at Opeta and Matapawa are really just waiting on sort of guidance from staff about what they can expect and next steps and how that will function for them out there. As Tony and I alluded, we did attend a meeting with the various ratepayer chairs around the tsunami sirens, and that was run by Gary, and as you've heard a summary of that meeting, it was really good. And I'd just like to take this moment to just thank staff. They really mobilised very quickly last night from 6 o'clock to 8:30 this morning to get me and everyone else organised and contact all the different folks that were wanting to join us for public forum and have made this meeting happen. So thank you, Jen, Heather, Esther, bunch of rock stars really. So thank you very much, and hopefully it has gone reasonably smoothly for you guys on your end.
Here, well done, guys.
Yeah,
yeah, it's good.
Really well. So that takes us to the end of our meeting. Sorry, can I just have a mover and a seconder for members' reports?
So moved.
Thank you, Murray. Thank you. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye.
I didn't hear the seconder there. I didn't hear.
Tony and Murray.
Thank you.
Okay. And I think that takes us to, I just need a mover and a seconder to take us into public excluded, please.
I'll move that.
Thanks, Tony. Thanks, Murray. Thanks, Deli.
What I'm going to do is thank you for that. I'm going to stop the recording.
Thanks, Jen.
One moment.